You are listening to the Why Smart Women podcast, the podcast that helps smart women work out why we repeatedly make the wrong decisions and how to make better ones. From relationships, career choices, finances, to faux fur jackets and kale smoothies. Every moment of every day, we're making decisions. Let's make them good ones. I'm your host, Annie McCubbin, and as a woman of a certain age, I've made my own share of really bad decisions. Not my husband. I don't mean him, though. I did go through some shockers to find him. And I wish this podcast had been around to save me from myself. This podcast will give you insights into the working of your own brain, which will blow your mind. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording, and you are listening on this day. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Hello, I'm Annie McCubbin and welcome to Why Smart Women. So just a little bit about me. I'm an actor. I've done a fair amount of TV and theatre in my day. I'm a facilitator. I've been doing corporate training for about the last 2 decades, specialising in leadership, communication, collaboration and critical thinking, and I'm an author. I've written 2 books which are a comedic take on critical thinking. They're funny because most critical thinking books are written by men and they are dry and distinctly unfunny. The truth of why I wrote them is that I was driving my friends mad. They'd break up with someone or get sacked and say something like, "Oh, well, it was meant to be." And I'd say, "Really? Does that mean everything is meant to be? Because it just can't be about you. If that was meant to be, then everything is, like tsunamis and world famine and sex trafficking. So can you see how that thinking is flawed? That's magical thinking, which muddies the cognitive waters." And they'd look at me and wish they'd gone to another friend. Or someone would say, "I'm going on this paleo organic anti-GMO diet that Beyonce is on and she's lost 5 kilos in a week." And I'd say, "Where is the science behind that diet? You know anti-GMO is stupid and organic is a scam." And then they'd say, "Why are you such a pain to be around?" Which was hurtful, because I was only trying to help. And then I was worried that they'd stop inviting me out for margaritas, so I thought, I'll write a book instead. Then if they want my opinion, they can read my book. And now they'll be able to listen to my podcast. And you'd be happy to know I still have friends and still get invited out, so go me. Throughout this podcast, I'll be dropping in excerpts from my audiobook, Why Smart Women Make Bad Decisions and How Critical Thinking Can Protect Them, and Why Smart Women Buy the Lies and How Critical Thinking Reveals the Truth. Just for a little bit of context, the central character is a 30-something called Kat. She goes through the usual challenges that all women go through: narcissistic boyfriends, toxic managers and workmates, disobedient pets, thinking she's fat, having performance reviews, you know, the usual deal. She has a cat called Susan and a dog called Porridge. She lives in a block of flats with a selection of helpful and not so helpful neighbours, and through all of this she starts to recognise the cognitive flaws in her thinking and starts to make better decisions. So sadly, a friend of mine got scammed the other day, and as scamming is absolutely everywhere at the moment, I thought I'd take a look at the cognitive flaws that are in play when we're being scammed. Being scammed will be an ongoing topic in this podcast, as it's not just being scammed by a professional scammer that's the problem. It's our vulnerability to being lied to generally. We're tribal beings and our tendency is to believe what people tell us. It's a survival mechanism. We need people. But this need of other people and our inclination to trust them can backfire. Here's a little snippet from my audiobook where the central character, Kat, takes a call from eBay. Your phone rings. You don't know the number, but you pick up.
Hello, this is Nina from eBay. We're checking on a recent $500 transaction made on your account. Did you make that?
A $500 transaction? No, not that I recall.
You lower yourself onto the edge of your couch. There was a report on the news last night about a man who'd saved for a house deposit for 10 years, hadn't taken a holiday or been out to dinner. He'd been scammed out of the lot. He cried.
So that was not you?
She says.
Okay. Would you mind holding the line while I hand you over to my supervisor?
Your supervisor?
Yes. He's a fraud specialist who will determine if there has been illegal activity and what you can do about it.
Your brain goes into panic. If there has been illegal activity, You would remember a $500 purchase. Something's not right. What if you've been majorly hacked?
Hello, this is Andrew.
Hello, Andrew.
My colleague tells me that you do not remember making a $500 transaction on eBay.
That's right.
Well, I'm here to help.
How do I know this is a genuine call?
I understand your reservations, ma'am. You're right to be wary, but I can assure you this is a genuine call. I work in the eBay fraud team. Would you like my eBay employee ID number?
Well, you think to yourself, he sounds genuine, but also, hang on, don't be a sucker. He gives you a number.
You could be making that number up.
Okay. Punch this URL into your web browser and the eBay website will come up.
You grab your laptop and yes, the eBay website appears with a photo and an ID number.
Hang on. You could be faking this website.
He sighs. You begin worrying that he's trying to help you and you are delaying the process.
Okay. Let's just confirm your network connections are fully secure. Would that be okay?
How do I do that?
Open Settings.
Okay. Open.
Click on Network.
Network.
Please click on Your Connection, find the Advanced button, and select DNS. Can you see some numbers?
Yes.
What we don't want are the numbers 192 or 168.
Oh, no. That's what's here. 192 and 168.
Both of them? That's not good. Right now, anyone can get into your system.
Your heart starts to hammer.
Okay, we can stop this. Let's see if anyone is actually targeting you. Please open your activity monitor and select the Network tab.
Yes.
Tell me if you see the word Net Bios in the list.
Yes. Net bios.
That's them. They're hacking your system right now.
What? Someone's hacking me right now?
Yes, ma'am, right now. Net Bios is the signature of a Russian hacker syndicate. They pretend to be environmental activists, but they're really just thieves.
Is it just my eBay account?
No, ma'am. They could have access to everything, including your bank accounts.
Your legs feel weak, your stomach churns.
Well, can we stop them?
We can, ma'am. That's what I've been trying to do.
I'm sorry. There's so much in the news about scamming.
Of course, ma'am. You're right to be careful. This is what will happen next. I will send you a link and you will download a security patch that will immediately block NetBIOS hackers from your network and prevent any future hack.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome, ma'am. We want to keep our customers safe. Have a nice evening.
The email arrives as Andrew promised. You download the security patch and install it like an IT pro. You check your bank accounts. Everything is in order. Porridge comes and puts his head on your lap. You're awash with relief.
That was close.
You say to Porridge. Okay, so Kat is feeling confident that the call is legit and goes about her business safe in the knowledge that she's been saved from being hacked. All is good in Cat world. Or is it? Here's Kat the next morning. The next morning, you sit up in bed. You take your phone from the bedside table and open your internet banking account to pay for the sheets.
No. No. No!
Your savings account has been emptied,
What is it?
says Michael.
I've been robbed.
How do you know?
Because I went to buy the forest green sheets and my savings account is empty.
Check your other accounts.
You scream.
Oh, no!
There wasn't much in them, but they too have been cleaned out.
It's okay. Call the bank. They have a fraud squad.
It was the eBay people.
The eBay people?
The eBay people that rang me last night. They told me I'd been hacked and that they would protect me.
It's okay, Kat. They have very organised scams.
How is this possible? I opened up the eBay website and there was his photo and his ID number. Why am I so stupid?
It's okay, Kat. Ring the bank.
Oh my God, I'm the worst idiot.
You lie back down and pull the covers over your head.
I can't afford this right now.
Michael pulls back the covers.
Kat, ring the bank.
Oh, I thought it could have been a scam, but he had an answer for everything.
It's okay. They're very sophisticated. Ring the bank.
We do training exercises at work where they send out fake scams and see if you fall for it. I never have. I thought I was scamming Teflon.
Kat, ring the bank.
You dial the number.
They're going to think I'm a total fool.
The automated voice sounds reassuring.
In a few words, please tell us how we can help you today.
Hello? I'm a complete idiot. I think I've been scammed.
The automated voice sounds unfazed.
Thank you. Hold on and I'll put you through to someone who can help you.
Michael smiles encouragingly.
I am a complete idiot.
You say, Hello, this is Eva. How can I help you?
Yes, this is Kat Mitchell speaking. I've been scammed.
eBay?
Yes.
You're the 20th call this morning. You don't know if being part of a scammed collective makes you feel better or worse. Right, so sadly, Kat was scammed. How did this happen? Well, for starters, don't assume that Kat is not smart. Kat, like you, listener, is very intelligent. But intelligence is no protection against being lied to unless you're applying some critical thinking to your mental process. We erroneously trust our instincts and intuitions, thinking our intuition is going to guide us. But like you'll hear me saying repeatedly in this podcast, your intuition can be dazzlingly right sometimes and way off-piste other times. Now, scammers use a number of techniques to take advantage of our cognitive flaws. Kat feels she's interrogated the so-called Andrew sufficiently, and he has managed to reassure her that he is legit. She is fooled by a logical fallacy called argument from authority. A logical fallacy is something that sounds reasonable but is actually illogical. Argument from authority is where we are naturally inclined to believe people in a position of authority or with an authoritative sounding voice. So Andrew reassured Kat and praised her for her suspicion, which lulled Kat's brain into a false sense of security. Then there's something called priming. Kat hears the word eBay. It's a trusted brand. She's heard the word before in other contexts and is primed to trust it. The same goes for the word supervisor and fraud team. These words cut through our defences and make us more inclined to trust the person who's using them. They also use the anchoring bias, where we anchor onto information that's given early in the decision-making process. Right from the start, the scammer said she was probably being scammed, and that kept Kat anchored securely back to that piece of very early information. Urgency is another technique scammers use. It's imperative that you do something immediately. Time is of the essence. You are in great danger. If you wait and weigh up your options, you'll lose everything. Now, these techniques are used by liars everywhere. Be very aware of them. If the person you're on a date with is also charming and uses techniques like anchoring or argument from authority, there's a much greater chance you'll suspend your critical thinking. Charming and nice don't necessarily translate to good. So my very first guest is Katrina Foster, who is my very good friend. So Katrina is an esteemed actor, a television writer, has lectured in storytelling and is a corporate facilitator at NIDA, which is, of course, our National Institute of Dramatic Art. Hello, Katrina. How are you?
Hello, I'm well, thank you. How are you, Annie?
Oh, very well, thank you. So, Katrina, I should have mentioned, also had the extreme privilege of playing Mrs. Baleri.
Yes.
Yes, who was a psychic in the audiobook of my second book, Why Smart Women Buy the Lies. That was a high point in your career, wasn't it, Katrina?
It was. I'm still reeling from the opportunity. It was fabulous.
Yeah, if you're very, very lucky, I might invite you back to play something.
Oh, okay.
In my third book. Actually, as I recall it, I think you played about 6 different characters in that book.
But I was the fraudster. I was the scammer.
You
Well,
were
I was
the
part of
scammer.
scam.
Yeah, but you
I
were
was part of the scam.
yeah, but you sounded really warm, and yeah, and of course, which is the problem.
The scammers don't sound like they're evil when they ring you up.
No, they sound very, very friendly. Yes, and helpful, and yeah, nice. Katrina, I thought we might just take a deep dive into something that is all over the media at the moment, which is, the dog came in. Get out. Sorry. Well, I know it's a very slick operation that we've got going on here, Katrina. We're in the studio. We've got the 2 Groodles. We've got Yo-Yo, the black Groodle, who dispatched some guinea pigs the other day. We'll talk about that later. And yeah, it's bad. and we've got Ryder who come into the studio. So if anybody hears any sort of panting or barking, that's the dogs. Anyway.
It's not me.
It's not Katrina. It's not Katrina, that's right. So, yeah, I thought we'd take this deep dive into scamming.
I have a story
Oh, do go. Please do go.
about a friend of mine.
Mm.
I mean, we do think scamming. We think there's a part of us too that thinks, you hear stories about people being scammed by someone saying that they're the king of Nairobi or the king of Siam, and they'll. And,
Please
you
let
think,
me give you my millions.
yeah, please give me your bank account details. And you think, if you would ever fall for that.
Exactly,
it's ridiculous. And we all think, I would never fall for all that sort of thing. But it can be this woman is highly educated woman, really smart, really cluey, but has just been through a terrible divorce, feeling very, very low.
Emotionally vulnerable.
She went online and met a man. And they didn't even meet up physically. It was just a sort of they just talked to each other on the phone initially. And he was, it was just having somebody that would say to her, and I think when you do split up with somebody or you lose somebody, it's the little incidental things you miss. It's not the sort of big conversations. It's the little person, just sort of the unpacking of your day. And this guy would pick up on that. So she would say, he would ring her up and say, how did the dentist go today? Or how did you go at the accountant? That sort of thing. Just little things. And somebody had remembered that she'd been to the dentist. And when you've lost somebody, that's the awful thing, I think, because nobody knows where you are half the time. And this man would remember what she had to do and the little things.
Well, I think it's that intimacy. It's that sort of, it's the ordinary intimacy that you miss,
very
isn't it?
And totally unthreatening, someone saying that. It's not no one, they're just being kind and considerate and thinking about you and focusing on you. So he sort of wooed her that way. And she wrote, and then he asked her to, it wasn't even, I think he just asked her whether he said he was having trouble with his account and could she transfer from one account to the other or something. And she did it. And there was a lot of instructions how to do it. And she did it, and he said, "Oh no, you've mucked it up. You've done it really wrong. I've lost so much money because of what you've done."
What?
And she felt as if it felt terrible. So she gave him money to make up for it or something.
And can I just ask you just a couple of things about that? How long did that process go on for? Do you know?
Probably
a couple of months,
I would say a couple of months. Yeah, a couple of months. I think it happened. The process of the transfer happened a couple of times. So I think there was one that went all right, and then it got a little bit more because he was having all these problems, which she didn't wake up to that they were, because he was a nice man. He thought they were genuine problems until
she worked it out. And do you know if she spoke to other people along the way? Did she tell friends that was happening, or did she not?
I don't think so. No, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think so.
So I think it's interesting that you said right at the head of this story is that she was intelligent.
Yeah.
And what we know from all the data is that intelligence is absolutely no protection from being lied to. So if we think about scamming, it's just the new word for lying. And our vulnerability to lying comes from the emotional part of our brain, not the prefrontal cortex, which actually evaluates data. So, of course, because she was in this vulnerable place in the first place, there's a very strong motivator, isn't there, to believe the person. And they call it motivated reasoning. So it feels like you're being rational and reasonable, but you're rationalizing your way to the outcome that you want. And the outcome that she wanted is understandable, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We can all understand how it could happen. I could understand how I could imagine doing it.
Yeah, absolutely, me too. And I think one of the fundamental problems that we have is that we're not schooled in critical thinking. And there is this elevation, especially aimed at women, that your gut response or your intuitive response can be trusted across the board. So we do get, she probably got a quite a warm, intuitive feeling about him because he was charming and kind. And then we're sort of told that this gut response can be trusted. And this is just a big, fat, fundamental lie, because intuition is just a very fancy word for memory. So you hear someone's voice on the phone and they're kind and he's considerate and he's asking, the right sort of everyday questions. And then your brain goes through its database and comes up with someone in your past who was like that. And then bingo, you call that an intuitive response that you trust them. And this, of course, our intuition in some contexts is absolutely brilliant. You and I would know that being actors, that intuitive idea or response you have to a script often is quite accurate, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I think that a gut reaction to a script is worth noting. I think it's a really good thing to actually note your gut reaction when you're assessing a script, say. You note the first reaction, your gut reaction to the script, and then you apply more of a more
critical eye.
Critical eye, absolutely. And you might come back to say, yes, my gut reaction was right.
And I think that. And this is, I think it's such an interesting point about you might go back and go, yes, my gut reaction was right. Or you might go back and go, no, my gut reaction was wrong. But this is, and we're going to be touching these a lot in the course of this podcast, is we have these cognitive flaws. And one of them is confirmation bias. And because we're very, very keen on being right, what we do is we only remember the times that our gut reaction was right. And we just, we just discard the times that our gut reaction was wrong. And I would just like to say at this point that if you ever sense, this is for all the listeners, if you ever sense danger or you have a gut response that says there's something not right, for God's sake, trust it, because it doesn't matter if it's errant. It doesn't matter if it's wrong. Trust it. If you're in a lift and you don't feel right, there's somebody in the lift, or you're in a car park or someone offers you a lift home, for heaven's sakes, trust that gut response. But I think because we have confirmation bias in relation to our gut response, there is this constant idea, which is obviously elevated by social media, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, that your gut is king. Listen to your higher self, and it's not true. What does your heart tell you? Because I'm sure your friend had a very strong intuitive response that he was the genuine article. And why wouldn't she? We're vulnerable to it, right?
Yeah, and also she hadn't even met him. I mean, so she was in no physical danger.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, she's smart, right?
She's very smart, very smart. But probably at that stage you don't recognise quite how needy you are either.
No.
We don't recognise. Sometimes when we are vulnerable, we can only recognise we're vulnerable after the fact. We don't really know.
It's so true. I think it's so true about the vulnerability, and it just makes me so angry that there are these people that are taking advantage of women, or anybody really, in these sort of, these places where they've been left or abandoned, or they somehow find themselves alone. And then on top of that, they criticise themselves for falling for it, but really, we're not designed to be skeptical. We're just not. And that's unfortunately the truth. It has to be a learned skill. Critical thinking is a learned skill. So I think we'll wrap that up there. Katrina Foster, thank you so much for being my very first guest. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your amazing insights.
My pleasure. It's been a lot of fun and honoured to be your first guest.
When we're making a decision, we should be using our critical thinking skills to check our reasoning and assess the evidence. Like, for instance, if we meet someone that could potentially be a romantic partner, we may have a strong gut response in the positive. We may call one of our friends and say, I've just met Josh or Sam, and my gut says, yes, it just feels so right. Now, when we meet someone for the first time and you have an intuitive response in the positive or negative, This is actually your brain going through the filing cabinet in the dusty reaches of it and coming up with similar features, the curl of their lip, the sound of their voice, the way they dress. This intuitive response we're so fond of relying on is actually just a function of subconscious memory. We then marry this response of memory with motivated reasoning because we want this relationship to be the one. So we use faulty reasoning to decide it is. This is also the process where we may override red flags because we simply don't want to believe that this person may be dangerous. I'm so sorry to burst the I can trust my gut bubble, but it's just not reliable. Unless you're in danger, then 100% listen to your gut. Your unconscious is constantly scanning the environment and checking for danger signs, which your conscious brain is too busy thinking about whether to have a margarita or a glass of Sauv Blanc for dinner to notice. In my considered opinion, and I am a woman of a certain age, women are particularly vulnerable to the trust your gut message. Women are particularly vulnerable to being gaslit. So just as you're listening to this, just consider your own experience and the experiences of your friends and family members. How many decisions have been made off the back of a feeling? How have they worked out? I imagine brilliantly sometimes and other times absolutely disastrously. How did you talk about it afterwards? Did you get closer to the truth? Wouldn't you actually like to understand the pitfalls in your thinking so you can steer your life with a steadier hand? And if that's you, and if what I've talked about sounds familiar or resonates with you and you can see it in your life and the life of your friends and family, then I think probably this podcast could be quite helpful. We can look at the fundamentals of how irrational we are. We can look at putting energy into things that you can control and the things you can't. We'll start to examine how the flaws in our brain drive our thinking and as a part of that, drive our behaviour. Thanks for tuning into Why Smart Women with me, Annie McCubbin. I hope today's episode has ignited your curiosity and left you feeling inspired by my anti-motivational style. Join me next time as we continue to unravel the fascinating layers of our brains and develop ways to sort out the fact from the fiction and the over 6,000 thoughts we have in the course of every day. Remember, intelligence isn't enough. You can be as smart as paint, but it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think. And in all this talk of whether or not you can trust your gut, if you ever feel unsafe, whether it's in the street, at work, in the car park, in a bar, or in your own home, please respect that gut feeling. Staying safe needs to be our primary objective. We can build better lives, but we have to stay safe to do that. And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the podcast and share it with your fellow smart women and allies. Together, we're hopefully reshaping the narrative around women and making better decisions. So until next time, stay sharp, stay savvy, and keep your critical thinking hat shiny. This is Annie McCubbin signing off from Why Smart Women. See you later. This episode was produced by Harrison Hess. It was executive produced and written by me, Annie McCubbin. The characters in the audiobook were read by Odile Leclasio, Katrina Foster, David McCubbin, and Declan Bloom-Karkas.